Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of Flesh Wound Farce, where we review and discuss your and our favorite comedy films. This is the world's first and only combination trivia host and professional wrestling announcer of Chilean descent that currently resides in Southern California, Ozzy V. And with me, as always, on this program, first in the Northern California Bay Area, world-famous juggler Greg Larson. How you doing, Greg?
Man, I got to see some Bill Murray, so I am great. How about yourself, Ozzy?
I'm equally as fantastic. I'll get into that detail momentarily. Flesh Wound producer Todd, also here. How you doing?
I'm chilling.
Indeed you are. Now this week we do have the pleasure of discussing and reviewing What About Bob, which was released on May 17th, 1991, with a runtime of 99 minutes. Todd, do you have the trailer available?
I do.
Oh, you responded to me this time instead of just playing it.
Just when Leo Marvin thought he was getting away from it all,
As of this afternoon, I'm taking my family on vacation.
his old friend Bob Wiley showed up.
Dr. Marvin!
Oh my God.
I really appreciate this.
I don't want any of you letting Bob into this house.
He's a sweet guy. Didn't you invite Bob over for dinner? Would you like smoked chicken, Bob?
Will you stop that, please?
You're angry.
No, I don't get it.
You're upset.
Relax, Leo. Take a vacation.
I'm on vacation!
Touchstone Pictures presents Bill Murray
Hello, I'm Bob. Would you knock me out, please?
and Richard Dreyfuss
This man is crazy! Get out!
Why'd you need to kick Bob out of the house?
He's not gone. That's the whole point. He's never gone!
Is this some radical new therapy?
You see?
What About Bob? Rated PG.
All right. So that was What About Bob again, released on May 17th, 1991, with a runtime of 99 minutes. Was directed by Frank Oz, written by Alvin Sargent, Laura Ziskin, and Tom Schulman, with the screenplay and the story by Sargent and Ziskin. Starring Bill Murray, Richard Dreyfuss, Julie Haggerty, among others. I was in tears from the trailer, to be honest, because we'll get to that moment soon, but one of my favorite moments occurred in the trailer. So I just got to wipe the tears from there. Initial thoughts on this one. I saw this at a very early age, and I had seen it multiple times. Todd, you mentioned last week when we reviewed Summer School that it must have been your 25th time watching that movie. It was probably around the same time for me watching this one here. When I watched it, it's funny. I could have done this review without rewatching it this weekend, just because this movie stays so fresh in my mind because it's so great. Greg?
You know, I love doing this show because there's so many movies that I know I should have seen and I hadn't, and this is one of them. You had
never seen this movie?
I had never seen this movie.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And what's funny about it is, like, I truly feel it's the spiritual, like, successor of one of my favorite movies of all time, Harvey. Like, I feel like it took flavors of Harvey and made a newer version of it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to dive into. And like I said, Bill Murray, always fantastic. So yeah, I'm glad we watched it. It's a great fun flick.
Todd?
I saw this one theatrically, so way back in 91. This one I really loved back then. I watched it over and over. I probably haven't watched it in 20, 25 years though. So I still remembered everything, and it was still just as good as last time I watched it.
That is the great thing about it, and I'll go deeper shortly, but the yin and the yang between the two main characters, between Bob and Dr. Leo Marvin. The entire movie, you see that it's vulnerability versus invulnerability, whereas Leo desires invulnerability, and his family wants to see him vulnerable. But because Bob comes in and is completely vulnerable, the family gravitates towards him, right? And it's just so fascinating to see. And it all kind of it's so interesting to see it happen during the TV interview, where in front of the camera, he's perfect. But Bob is perfect in front of the camera during this interview. And you have Leo Marvin completely shriveled up and scared. The thing that he fears most, and I imagine in his entire life, would be that invulnerable in front of the entire nation. So having that dynamic illustrated throughout the whole movie, and then that interview happens about an hour in, the TV interview happens an hour in, and it just goes over so well, at least for me. That's an initial thought I just wanted to chime in on before going into a further discussion on it. Greg? I already did initial thought. Did we already do initial thought?
Yeah, we
Man.
did. But I do want to also say, like, I appreciate the fact that there were some puppets in this film.
Touche. So then let's get into these favorite moments. It's really hard, really hard trying to pick one thing out of this movie, because from start to finish, you have things you could pick, and I wouldn't argue that you say that would be your favorite moment. Sure, because this movie's filled with potential of these moments. And if I have two, that I'll save one, but they're two separate types. One is a quick dialogue line that if you're not paying attention, it'll just go right over you. But another is the physical and the outlandish and the goofy. So I'll go with that one, and then I'll go with the other line if you guys don't mention it. But it's when Bob falls in the lake and he's trying to swim out and he keeps asking if he's going to die. The delivery is so genuine. It's just so funny. And especially since he was shoved into the lake by Dr. Marvin, it just kind of, and you see the two people on the boat that watch the whole thing, and how that scene just transpired was hilarious. Greg?
There's, like I said, there's so many to choose from. One of them was in the trailer, so I think I'm just gonna not say that one. But there was a moment in comedy, you hear about the rule of threes. You know, like you bring up something a third time and it becomes funny again. But like the rule of like 20s when he says, "I'm sailing." Like, so many times. Like, I died. He just like would not let that go, you know, and it hit me in a way that made me laugh far more than I expected to with that bit.
Absolutely. Todd?
One thing that made me laugh, which is not it's just a little comment when they when he brings up Martha's Vineyard to Richard Dreyfuss, which, if you know, that's where Jaws was shot, and it was a nightmare shoot. So I just thought that was a funny little nod. But my favorite, I'll say this, the one that made me laugh the hardest this time while watching it was the Tourette scenes. And he says, "I won't have it if I fake it." It just the way he believes it. He just does it. Yeah, that got me this time really good.
Now I actually, I'm wrong on myself, because earlier I mentioned there was a part in the trailer that had put me over the top, and it shouldn't be really surprising. This was what caused tears in the trailer, watching it just now, is when you see Leo Marvin getting out of the car, open Bob's passenger door, and yells at him to get out of the car, but it's incoherent yelling and anger, and I can relate. So it was entertaining to see that. But I did appreciate the Game Boy appearance that the 12-year-old was playing.
Yep.
But when he talks
I
about
still call my Switch the Game Boy, by the way. Any portable Nintendo device will always be a Game Boy.
Shouldn't be a game man by this time.
You'd think so, but you
'Cause
know,
it got bigger.
You brought up the kid,
Yes.
and the only thing I know him from besides this,
Dick Tracy.
and no, I forgot about that because I actually had to look
okay.
him up because I know him from Can't Hardly Wait because he's the one the one leading all the nerds. He's the one.
Charlie Korsmo
Yes,
is his name.
yes, he's the one leading the nerds in Can't Hardly Wait.
Gotcha. So with the Game Boy appearance, he's talking about how his dad just dropped him in the lake. And he says, "My whole life flashed before my eyes." And the response from Bob is, "Well, you're lucky you're only 12. It's one of those, if you're not paying attention, it's going to go right over your head. It's absolutely fantastic. So if it isn't obvious already, I can't give this anything less than a 5. When I saw this today, I had actually gone over to my sister's house to drop off a controller for my nephews, and I had mentioned that we were gonna review this for the show, and my sister had ended up just buying it so she could show her nephews, or I'm sorry, her kids, my nephews, her kids, whatever. And I got there during the last half hour just as the TV interview scene was going on, right? And I decided to stick around and watch the last half hour of the movie with them. And then when I went back and watched the beginning all over again, I thought was really fascinating is, so there's a point when Leo says, "I'm free," right? When he believes he's free of Bob Wiley, right? He says, "I'm free." The doctor at the beginning who's quitting and gives the referral to Marvin, after he hangs up, that's exactly what he says.
Oh, yeah.
right.
I'm free. So it's a great, like, ongoing, like, he does this to every doctor. But what's also great, just this, not only just as a comedy, but just as a movie in general, when you look at Bob's character and what he really needs is really just a family unit, is all he needed. But he kept going through these doctors because he was using that as a substitute. And it was just fascinating to see that all transpire. And again, the yin and yang between Leo and Bob, and the vulnerable and the invulnerable as well.
I'm just gonna say Dr. Leo was right though. He crossed too many lines.
Right?
He was right to be upset. He was right to be pissed.
That's what makes it so great though. It's like it's Curb Your Enthusiasm, right? Like Larry has a right to be pissed at whatever he's pissed at. Just how things are gone about, or just what make things, imperfect. Here we have in this situation. But I'm sorry, I know, like, we just keep going back. We've already said favorite moments, and we're like, oh yeah, but this, oh yeah, but this, oh yeah, but this. Because you had mentioned Martha's Vineyard, Todd, as like, a joke or whatever. I'm curious. I want to get my hands on a commentary track for this. Because I'd seen it digitally. Funny thing, by the way, is to rent on Apple through their gimmick, it's $3.99. To purchase, it's $17.99. That's a movie from 1991. Usually movies around that time are around $10. This one's $18. So that should be indicative of something.
Well, who owns the movie?
Who does own the movie?
It's Touchstone. So the mouse, come on.
No.
Yeah.
I think they know what they can get away with.
Well, if you look at Disney's, unless they're on sale, they're all that price. This goes on sale for $5.99 a lot. So
okay. When it is on sale for $5.99, I'd highly recommend picking it up.
But would you pick it up for full retail?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I want to hear.
I would, but I do want to get my hands, as I mentioned, if there is a DVD with a commentary track, that's all I want is I want the Frank Oz commentary, because from the Bowfinger commentary, when we did that a long time ago, that was a very interesting commentary to watch, because he talked about how Eddie was on set and how Steve Martin was on set. So I really would like to know how much between Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss was improvised. A scene when Leo Marvin can't find his toothbrush and he uses his finger and he talks about the situation that they're in, seemed so just natural. And I'm curious if him brushing his teeth with his finger was even initially written in the script, or if he just mentioned like, hey, so Bob has my toothbrush. would it be funny if I was being mad, brushing my teeth with my finger? Because that was really funny to somebody being upset and brushing their teeth with their finger. That's not it hasn't been duplicated, right? How often do you ever see in movies somebody brushing their teeth with their finger, right?
Yeah.
But it's something that would happen. So I can't talk about this enough. I apologize. What's that?
No, I was going to say, yeah, there is no commentary as of now because there's still only the cheap old Disney Laserdisc Master DVD.
Okay.
Wow.
But the one thing is, this era of Touchstone Hollywood Pictures and Disney stuff is all been being mined by Kino Lorber, especially in putting out 4Ks of a lot of stuff and creating new extras. So I'm hoping this one is one that they'll touch and we'll get a commentary, even better, a modern commentary, where those tend to be a lot better than like the commentary from 20 years ago. Sometimes they hold stuff back. Add 20 years and they don't give a shit and they'll tell you whatever you want to hear.
I see what you're saying. So you mentioned actually Hollywood Pictures. Hollywood Pictures released Encino Man.
Yes, they did, another Disney film,
which was also released around the same time, right?
Right around.
Okay. So when you're saying like, oh, movie, you know what, Todd, you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
I would not say Encino Man is worth $17.99, but that's how much it's selling for.
Yeah. I know my movie nonsense. Come on.
But anyhow, so that was, what about Bob? If you have not seen this, purchase it. It's going to be one that you're going to want to regularly see. Greg, you had not seen this movie before, and I think it's going to be one you're regularly going to see, right?
Yeah. I'd definitely give it like a 4.5 or so. You know,
did we even do the rankings?
You did.
Oh my gosh! See, this is how good this movie is. It makes me forget the format.
You know,
so
and by the way, Todd,
I'm a 5, obviously. Greg,
yeah, I'd say I was torn between a 4.5 and a 5, and I think just because I relate it so much to Harvey, like I don't think it's up to that level because I love that movie so much. And if it weren't for that, I'd probably give it a 5. But I do really, really, really enjoy this movie. And Todd, thank you for bringing up where you saw that kid from, because I knew I recognized him, but I didn't remember from what. And it wasn't Can't Hardly Wait. So I had to look it up, and it was because he was in Hook. And that was
that's right.
Like,
he wasn't Hook.
He was really, yeah. So, but yeah, 4.5, 5 if I hadn't seen Harvey before. But this is a great movie.
I'm being good. I'm a 4.5. I was going back and forth between a 5, but because Dr. Leo was right, I'm giving it a 4.5. Is Ozzy mad because it didn't get a perfect 5?
Well, kind of. I mean, what? Think about all the Bill Murray movies out there.
It's a piece of shit. It's a 4.5. Come on. That's near perfect, Ozzy.
Near. But this is, I'm going to go on record to say, a perfect movie. And, I mean, I thought you guys had some intelligence. Apparently, I was wrong. I'm the one without intelligence. Well, so I apologize that I put my faith in you two to give an appropriate score for this film. That's on me. That's my fault. Well, I apologize.
You didn't get Private School of 5 either, and I let it.
Okay, that's because I didn't deserve it. You know what? I didn't get angry at all this time. Of course, you got to show the shirt because you think it's going to shut me up. But again, I'm hardwired to say teespring.com/stores/Flesh Wound Features. That's TEE spring.com/stores/Flesh Wound Features. We still haven't been sued yet, so get your shirt while you can.
Yeah, it's supposed to stop being on sale right now. So unless something changes, you guys got a few minutes.
Anything else you guys got before we head out for the evening?
No, 4.5.
That's good 4.5. Definitely a good 4.5. Great movie.
And in the chat, let us know 4.5, 5. What's your rating?
Yeah. Yeah, in the comments, let us know. 4.5 or 5. Whose side are you on? Are you on Greg and Todd's side? I can't even talk straight because it's such.
Yeah, if you put it like that.
Have you seen Harvey, Ozzy?
No.
Okay.
But I don't care because I'm looking at this movie independently.
And Ozzy, what happens next week? What do they get to vote upon?
I don't know what they get to vote upon. What are the choices?
Right.
What are the choices?
You don't know
What
yet.
is this voting you speak of?
Well,
Patreon members of Flesh Wound Features have the opportunity to vote on which film we will review and discuss, and that will be a live episode.
On the 25th.
Airing on the 25th. Join us live at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. What movie is it going to be? Like, we can't even. Is there any like? We don't get the choices or anything. Like,
nope, it's a pure surprise.
So Patreon members go to the Patreon site, and there you will see the options.
They'll get the message, and they've already got it, and they probably already voted. So
everybody was messaged about this poll. Okay, so check your emails. Is that correct? Or check your messages on the Patreon app.
Yes.
Okay, check your messages on the Patreon app.
Yes,
What, Todd? What is it?
I was going to say I'm going to send them out today so they have a week to decide.
Okay, check your messages on the Patreon today. If you're not a Patreon member, go to the Patreon, sign up, and you can contribute to pissing me off. I think that's appropriate to say, right?
And then you can tell Ozzy on the live show that this movie was a 4.5.
You can save that if you want to hold your comments in the chat. Save it for the live show.
Anyhow,
maybe we'll have a new shirt. Who knows?
That is What About Bob, released in 1991. Give it a purchase. It's worth it. You're going to want to see it multiple times. Greg, Todd, anything else before we head out? Like, genuinely. Not like, oh, I'm going to piss Ozzy off by saying this.
Good evening.
No, yeah. No, it's like, I agree with you, Ozzy. It is a purchase. This isn't a rent film. This is a great film to have in your catalog. I will give you that for sure.
How do you get mad at a 4.5?
Right?
I don't know.
Right? I want an A+ versus an A.
I think it's because when there's comedic anger, I think it deserves perfection in review scores because it's appropriate to relate to real life.
But I also feel like being someone who's been in customer service for a long enough period of time to like have that moment where you're like, obviously this guy is going way above his boundaries. Like, why am I the one who's being looked at as the bad guy?
Yeah, but that's that.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, world's famous juggler Greg Larson and Flesh Wound producer Todd, and I'm Ozzy V. We'll see you next week with a live episode here on Flesh Wound Farce.